doesn't seem that long ago since I planted these peas out. These are the sugar and peas that I grew in the gutter, and then slid them out, built this wigwam for them to grow on, and now look at them. Much taller than advertised, I will have to say. Next year when I grow these again, I will definitely be making the trellis probably another couple of feet taller, just to be able to give some structure for these taller vines to grow on. I'm a convert, by the way. I absolutely love these peas. They're tasty, but also really convenient. I'm not a big fan of shucking peas or podding the peas. And so you can eat the entire pod. Really tender. I've been eating them raw as I've been picking them. We've got some in the fridge at home. We've got more to pick here. They're great in stir fries, everything. And as I said before, really convenient. Today it is, what is it, early July. There's a lot to pick today. There's a lot to harvest, a lot to clear, and we have a gathering this weekend, and so I want to harvest enough to be able to make quite a few side dishes. And so today we're going to focus mainly on picking things like the peas, digging up potatoes, digging up the garlic, picking greens, looking around the allotment to see what other tasty things I can take home to make into some delicious food. That's a good portion of peas. I've left quite a few of the smaller ones on the plants, but I've been picking the pods both as much larger pods, you know, traditional size pods for peas that are filling out that you want to take out of the pod to eat, and also the smaller sized ones. Now, inside these larger pods, I'm going to just open this up so we can have a look. There are peas. They're a little bit smaller. They're a little bit like petit pois peas. You could shuck these out if you wanted to, but there's no point because this pod, even though it's a bit bigger than, say, some of the smaller ones, it's still really tender and succulent and edible and tasty. We're not straying far for the next crop. This is perpetual spinach, and I have an entire row of it growing here in front of the peas. Now, perpetual spinach, it tastes a bit like spinach. It is also a little bit like chard in a way, a bit milder in flavor, but it's a lot less fussy than traditional spinach. And you can get it growing, and it will grow happily right through the summer and into the autumn. It can even overwinter in places like the Isle of Man. And again, it is really fuss-free. You can cut a few leaves at a time, it will regrow, and you don't have to re-sow it. Hence the name perpetual, just keeps growing and growing right through the warm season. Now, the next crop I'm digging up is 2 seasons in the making. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elephant garlic here. Elephant garlic, you plant it as a quite large clove, and in the first year it will produce a large bulb at the base. And if you leave it in the ground and you come back the next year, after the second year of growing, that large bulb will have split into those big individual cloves that we know and love. And before that happens, you also need to break off the scapes. So elephant garlic produces garlic scapes just like hardneck garlic does. Let's dig these up and have a look to see what we have. And I also have planted some new cloves this spring. They're on the far side with the other garlic. Those are going to be next year's crop. And Wow, that's a good sized clove. So I'm just showing you a little bit closer up. You can see how the individual cloves are forming there or have formed. I could leave this in for a little bit longer, but I'd say that that's pretty good. And that will be delicious roasted, or you can use it just like ordinary garlic as well, although the flavor is not as pungent. It's a little bit milder. Can't help but pull weeds as I go along. Bit of grass there. Next up on the to-dig list is potatoes, and I'm only growing one type this year. It's a first early called Red Duke of York, and I've left some of them in a little bit longer than the ones over on the far side of the allotment, and it's time to dig them up. They're actually really quite tasty. And they're also easy to find in the ground because the potatoes are red. So when you're digging them, they're really hard to miss. Let's just say that. We had an allotmentier, so someone else who gardens here, nearly give up this year because of blight. And blight is a type of a fungal disease that affects the potato and tomato family of plants. And my advice to you is that if you find that you are getting a lot of blight on your potatoes and you're feeling a little bit disheartened, to just grow first early and second earlies, because by the time they're ready to crop, it's about now or earlier. So you avoid the late blight that comes in late in summer and takes out main crop potatoes. On the other side of these potatoes, I have beetroot growing, which I'll get to in a second, and also French sorrel. This is the first time that I've grown it, although I've picked the wild sorrel from the lawn many times. It has this delicious kind of a citrusy flavor. It's from the oxalic acid that is in the leaves. The same flavor that gives oca, so the New Zealand yams, their flavor. And it's a much more subtle and cleaner flavor, I would say, this French sorrel, to the wild, I guess a little bit stronger flavor. Now with these leafy greens, you can put them into salads, you can wilt them and add them to, say, potato dishes or egg dishes, or you can put them into stir fries. They do discolor a little bit if you cook them too long, but if you can get away with just wilting them and adding them in at the very end, they're perfect. They are used in a soup, a traditional French soup, I believe, and they are also perennial, so they'll keep coming back year after year. French sorrel, happy to have them in the allotment. There are some healthy, happy beetroot growing in here. Let me pull up the first one. This is a row of rainbow beetroot, so it's a mix of colors. That one obviously is a red beet. We eat the greens as well as the roots. I twist off the leaves. I'll do it later when I'm at home. And the leaves and the stem are really delicious, steamed or again stir-fried or gently sautéed. And we all know what to do with beetroot. We can grate it raw, we can pickle it, we can preserve it in other ways. Another thing I should add is that I can grow beetroot here in the allotment, here on the Isle of Man, right through the summer. We have very, very mild temperatures here. It doesn't really get any warmer than about 75, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's maximum. It's generally a little bit cooler than that. And so we can continue sowing this right up through August, early August, and that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll be pulling some of these up. I've got some space back here. I'll have some space over here when I take all the potatoes up, and I'll be putting in some more seeds. And if you're thinking about sowing more seeds right now, you can, but you need to keep in mind your area's first frost date and how long it takes vegetables to be ready to harvest. So if you start sowing things right now for plants that need a long time, you might not get a harvest. But things that grow quickly, like beetroot, I'm sure to get a harvest. I'll also be putting in quite a few Asian green vegetables as well, now that we're in July. No July harvesting video would be complete without some berries. And we have some of the very first raspberries today. These are autumn fruiting, but there's usually a few early on in summer. And I'm going to try to fill this punnet, this little plastic container, with raspberries, the first of the blueberries. We've got strawberries, blackcurrants, gooseberries. I'm just going to try to fill this up and see how many we get. There are just so many gooseberries that I am going to need to come back up here and just do a gooseberry picking. And they are all relatively ripe, so they're squishable. Delicious. I spotted quite a few blackcurrants when I was poking around over here, and these are all ready to be picked. Loads of them. Wow. Gotta love those perennial vegetables and berries and fruit. Honestly, very little work involved in a berry harvest like this. Literally just mulching once a year, doing a bit of pruning. That's it. Berries for years. In this bed, there are quite a few weeds, and I guess you could consider these self-sown, so these volunteer poppies as a weed as well, but I love them, and it's been such a dry spring that having this extra cover of weeds, I think has helped to keep the soil a bit moister for the garlic, and so I've just let them grow. And we'll see now if it's affected the size of the garlic harvest, because I need to clear this bed now. I'm going to remove all of the garlic, all of the weeds. The only thing that I'm leaving will be a row of elephant garlic, which is on the far side. And we'll see how much garlic I got for this year. Ooh. First one, looking really good. Ha-ha! The ground is so dry that I can just pull these up without much effort. And they're coming out whole. These are the rose whites. They're looking really good as well. Although I've just been pulling up the Solent white, is that what they are? Let me just have a check. No, Picardy white. And they are pathetic, an absolutely pathetic harvest. And I'm not sure if it's just a variety and it just didn't like the position here, or whether it was the weeds competing with them, but they are all small and measly and not much of a harvest at all. Let's have a look at the garlic. The first row that I pulled up are these rose white, and they are a really good size. It's a hard neck garlic, so not easily braided, but possible with a bit of perseverance. The next two rows were Picardy white, and these are soft neck. These were the type that I was going to braid. But as you can see, the harvest is pretty pathetic, and I'm not entirely sure why. But no matter, we will be able to use these. They look kind of like single bulbs rather than dividing out into cloves. It's the first time growing this variety, and I don't think that I'm going to give it another go next year. Now, the last row, so on the other side of the Picardy white, was another row of the rose white, so the hard neck garlic, and they did well as well. So we've got quite a lot of garlic here. That's more than enough for the next year. Now, the last thing that I'm going to be harvesting today, the last big thing, are strawberries, or rather pine berries. I know, last year I took out all of the pine berries. There were a few left down at the bottom, but somehow between then and now, this entire bed has become a mass of pine berries. I think I found 1 or 2 red berries in here. So all of those Mara de Bois that I had planted up here. I had some honeydew, or some Malling centenary. They're all gone. They've been engulfed by this tsunami of pine berries. And it's almost like a Borg type event. It's like they've assimilated them, because these strawberries underneath the gooseberry over here as well, they were red as well. They are all now large pine berries, bigger than the ones here, but still white. It's all really, really odd. And I'm disappointed too, because I really wanted to have more red strawberries. No matter, I'm going to pick the pine berries. I'm going to take them home. I've already been freezing loads of them, and they aren't the type of color to make a really lovely strawberry jam, but if you mix them with some red, or you mix them with some other berries, it'll be fine. So anyway, where to begin? Because there are just so many. I could have definitely filled up this container with pine berries, but it's getting warm, I'm getting tired, and it's time for me to head home. And also, I have got enough on my plate. Literally this entire table's worth of veg to take home and to preserve or freeze or to prepare for our gathering this weekend. That's one of the great joys of growing a garden, is not only that time that we spend in the garden, but growing a harvest and then sharing it with people that we love. Now, as far as preserving, I am a big fan of ferments. I love sauerkraut, and I've been getting into fermenting a lot more this year. And so some of this will be fermented, including the turnips and some of the greens and the garlic. I'll pop some garlic cloves in there. And I will also be freezing a lot of things. So the berries, they do best when they're frozen, and then we can take them out for our breakfasts. And then of course the garlic and potatoes, they can be dried out and then put into storage. So nothing is going to go to waste. I have another harvest video. So if you enjoyed this video, do check out that other one. It's from a couple of years ago. And then you can compare the harvest of that year. And I believe it was also July. So similar time of year and similar harvest from what I can recall, but that's quite a popular video, so do head over and have a watch of that. And I will be back next week with another video here on Lovely Greens. Thanks for watching, and I will see you then. Bye for now.